Well, the situation here on the ground has really changed today, with her son down in the south being captured by Russian forces and making that the first urban city to fall since this invasion. Now, Russian forces are apparently now planting mines and booby-trapping the city to hit civilians. Now, more civilians are continuing to die across other parts of the country as well. The governor of the northern city of has said that 9 people were killed in a Russian strike. Now, also yesterday, within just 24 hours, 34 people died and 285 people were injured, including 10 children. So the numbers of the civilians dying here is incredibly worrying, Emma and Daniel, and it is just no wonder that even today, when we were leaving this city, when we were driving around the city, we could see cars were just banked up everywhere, heading south and just in a standstill on parts of the highway, still trying to leave. And as you can imagine, they're just wanting to get out and leave the country. Now, the UNHCR is reporting that more than 1 million people have left Ukraine already in the first week since Russia invaded, and we can expect that number to climb dramatically as the days go on.
Yeah, Sarah, we're hearing these numbers from the UN. I believe you were just talking about 136 civilians in Ukraine dead, 13 of those children. And apparently, Vladimir Putin has French President Emmanuel Macron on speed dial because he told him that the worst is yet to come. I'm paraphrasing. I don't know the exact words, but we're seeing a little bit of a change in the tone and tenor there, again, and what you're sharing on the ground. Anything else you can share?
That's correct. We are hearing these calls. He really does seem to call Emmanuel Macron a lot, which is rather strange. But the Elysee has put out that statement saying that Vladimir Putin did say that the worst is still yet to come in his fight to take all of Ukraine. He wants to capture the entire country, he said, and that the Ukrainians can expect more. Now, I think after hearing that statement, we are going to see more of a mass exodus, if you will, of Ukrainians still heading for those borders, which in all directions really as they head to the east, mostly people heading to Poland and then to Romania and Moldova as well. But the people are still fleeing. The majority of these people have already left Kyiv, and most people are still in these outskirts of these cities, in these smaller towns, have still remained in their homes. But I think after we hear, as the days go on, people in the outskirts might end up leaving as well. The
population in Ukraine is 44 million people, and not all of them will flee or evacuate, but that's a lot of people for those that are trying to get out. Sarah Williamson, you're doing a great job there from Ukraine. Thank you. Stay safe, and we'll talk to you again soon.
As the crisis in Ukraine grows, sanctions from the world on Vladimir Putin continue. Some U.S. lawmakers and the president of Ukraine, though, saying it's not enough. Joining us now to discuss, Florida Congresswoman Kat Cammack. Congresswoman, thanks for joining us. If I could get sort of your sense on how you're viewing President Biden's response overall to this international crisis.
Well, listen, we're in this partly because of the weakness exhibited by Biden. If you look at this situation, Putin has been playing chess for the last 12 months while Biden has been playing checkers, and unfortunately, Eastern Europe has become the chessboard. When you look at the opportunity to deliver lethal aid, Biden slow-walked it. We have reports that we have lethal aid still stuck at the border and has yet to get in the hands of Ukrainian fighters. When you look at the sanctions, the mother of all sanctions that we could have put on Russia, including SWIFT banking, he basically tiptoed around the issue and walked on eggshells. If we were going to be firm, we were going to be resolute and take swift action, we should have done this well in advance of the invasion, because let's be honest, the intelligence community, they knew it was coming. They were right on the mark with what happened. And today, Ukrainians are paying a price.
And again, throughout the course of this crisis here, they were waiting, right? The Biden White House was waiting for Putin to act first before responding. He, of course, brought this crisis up during his State of the Union. Here's part of that speech.
He badly miscalculated. He thought he could roll into Ukraine and the world would roll over. Instead, he met with a wall of strength he never anticipated or imagined. He met the Ukrainian people.
And Ukrainians are fighting back, Congresswoman. We see civilians picking up arms, defending their country. But at this point, from the U.S. perspective, is there something that more can be done, especially when it comes to Russian oil and the U.S. purchasing it?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, if you look at what we're importing from Russia, upwards of 500,000 barrels a day, that is blood oil. And the blood of Ukrainians is spilling on the streets all throughout their country. Why we do not have a restart of the Keystone Pipeline, why we are standing and saying, oh, we're going to keep importing Russian oil, which has really exacerbated the conflict and continues to fund the activities happening on the Russian front. That is a complete disgrace. And the fact that Biden and his administration refuses to acknowledge that Keystone Pipeline would yield us 850,000 barrels a day, we would have no need for Russian imports. We are literally funding the war in Ukraine on the Russian side by continuing to purchase Russian oil. And it is a shame. It is unacceptable. We need to cut that off immediately and cut the red tape here at home, get Keystone Pipeline back up and running.